Okay. So welcome everyone to our monthly Collaberex workshop. We're always trying to present really kind of interesting, engaging, monthly, not kind of not your really typical workshops, but something that go into more depth, just like we do in our groups. And I'm really happy to have two of our members, and one happens to be one of our facilitators, Patty Franco and Bill Prinzivalli, presenting today. The workshop is called The Leadership It Factor, what it is and how you develop it. So I'm just going to give you a brief bio on both of them, and then they will take over. So Patty Franco is an executive coach with over 20 years of experience in coaching, training, talent development. She has a blended background of 15 years of experience in various HR functions for Fortune 500 organizations, plus 10 years as an
That too loud?
entrepreneur.
No.
Please, everyone. Okay. Yeah. Please mute. Anyway, 10 years of experience as an entrepreneur. She holds a master's of education in adult and organizational development. She's certified for a zillion different things as a professional coach, an energy leadership index master practitioner, graduate of IPAC, the IPAC coaching program, and we're thrilled to have her co-host this with Bill Prinzivalli, who is an entrepreneur, executive coach, organizational consultant, improviser, author of a book that everyone should get called Improvisational Leaders.
Improvisational leaders.
Thank you. I can't speak today. I'm glad I'm not presenting today. He's a speaker, an improv workshop facilitator. He has a huge array of experience, and it has nothing to do with his age. Right. He's in developing business and corporate strategies, operations, growth planning. He's started up 4 companies. He's consulted for a zillion organizations. And in addition, he has a lot of experience in the areas of mindfulness, communications, and improvisation. So, welcome. And Patty and Bill, it's so great to have you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Jonathan. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that I can pull up the slide deck. So just if you guys can let me know if you can see that. Just give it a second to fully populate there. Can you see that?
Yes.
Yep.
Awesome. Awesome. Great. So we're going to flip flop back and forth between Bill and I, as well as in and out of the slide deck, because this is not going to be super formal. And just to preface all of this is what Bill and I decided to, and Jonathan, thank you for graciously giving us this opportunity to bring you a preview of this content. It's really a 3-hour workshop, but we thought that we would give you the essence of it, or a snapshot, a preview, a teaser, so that if it is something that at the end of this you're like, wow, this was super helpful, but I could see how this content is valuable to spend more time with it, then we'll give you an opportunity to plug into the longer workshop later. And actually the full program is really a 6-week program, but we won't get into that right now. So in brief, Bill and I have been working together for over a year to work together on bringing the contents of the mental fitness model through positive intelligence, which is what we are calling the leadership it factor, to audiences, in corporate America, as well as business leaders, because it really is the secret sauce to being able to be personally successful in your career and your personal lives, as well as to be the type of leader that is what we call a standout leader, or what Bill calls in his book, a champion, right? So being that kind of leader for your workforce so that you thrive, your workforce is thriving, the people that you work with, your constituents, are thriving. And so what we're going to cover today is the basics of the mental fitness model. How does it work? How does it look in practice? And then we're going to demonstrate with one person who is going to graciously volunteer to be coached, so you can actually see how we apply this model real time. So this has been transformative for me personally. I know for Bill as well. And we want to give you the opportunity to see how it can transform your own lives as well. So, Bill, I'll turn it over to you for your comments.
Yeah, thanks, Patty. Thanks, Jonathan. Just very briefly, the concept of the mental fitness, in my view, is a lot about awareness of who we're operating from. And what I mean by that is we have saboteurs that Patty will describe in a minute that we sometimes operate from, the controller, the pleaser, the perfectionist, etc. And it's really important to understand and become aware of, oh yeah, I'm just catching myself. I'm really being controlling right now. Because if you could be aware of that, then you have the opportunity to change your mind about how you want to respond to people. All right, so Patty's going to go through this in more detail, but again, awareness is a word that I like to keep in front of mind as we go through all of this.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. And the reason why all this matters is because so many people just are going through the motions, right? And with everything that's going on in the world, post-pandemic, the world stage of politics and disasters and war and all of that, there's just so much opportunity for us to be absorbed in the negative, which is an automatic response in our brains. And so it's really important to have skills that are more advanced skills so that you can navigate it differently and not succumb to things like depression and other stress-related illnesses. So let me jump right into it because I am going to go pretty quickly. So as I just mentioned, there's a really overarching level or higher level of stress than ever before in our society with CEOs and executives. So much to the point that all the research that I did, it was indicating that more and more leaders are actually opting out of their roles, punishing schedules, toxic cultures, not being able to navigate, the emotional landscape at work. And so, even more the reason why we felt this content was critical right now. So the it factor, as I mentioned before, it's no longer just about, well-being and, work-life balance and all that good stuff. It's really about mental fitness. And what mental fitness is in a nutshell, it's your ability to navigate your own mind and turn your naturally occurring negative thoughts into positive ones so that you can make better decisions that serve you well in the moment. And that could be serve you well in terms of business decisions you're making, or what you're eating for breakfast that day, or how you're responding in a difficult conversation with a colleague or a loved one. So I'm going to skip through this because this is for the longer workshop. Positive intelligence, in a nutshell, this is the book I highly recommend as a starting point that, if you get value from today, that you get the book and get the whole framework, through the book, because there's so much research and it's all based on the neuroscience perspectives and research and development through Shirzad Chamine. So his book frames it explains why 20% of individuals and teams are only ever reach their full potential. And it's because their mental fitness is at a lower level or a subpar level. And so when you really go into this work and embrace it and study it and practice it over time, you get to reach your full potential. And as a leader, you can help your teams become high-performing teams, essentially. Okay, so the PQ that we talk about is the percentage of time your mind is serving you as opposed to sabotaging you. And we'll get into the different sabotage styles in a moment. So the role of mental fitness and leadership development, and this is just meant to depict that, it's our mental fitness is at its core of how we function, meaning how well we navigate what's going on in the background of our brains, a lot of it subconsciously. And then we have our IQ, which is our emotional quotient, and we have our EQ, which is our, IQ is your intellectual quotient and EQ is your emotional quotient. So our intellect, our experience and expertise are part of what we use to be successful and effective and navigate life and learn and develop our brains. And then how we deal with ourselves, our self-awareness, how we manage, self-regulate, our social awareness is all of our EQ. But all of those two, IQ and EQ, is really actually fundamentally rooted in our PQ, because think about it, if you're stuck in a negative cycle of thinking, it's hard to learn new concepts and principles and apply them, which is why I say to a lot of corporations that I work for and get hired as a consultant and a trainer, training only moves the needle so much, because if you're introducing models and techniques and all of this academic research and skill development, if your brain is stuck on autopilot in a negative cycle, you're not going to be able to apply it because you can't appreciate it. So PQ is important to develop first, then it empowers and enables IQ and EQ. Does that make sense? And ultimately, it leads you to leadership mastery. So again, mental fitness is your capacity to respond to life's challenges with a positive rather than a negative mindset. And why that matters is because it helps you perform at your best. It helps you have peace and wellness and healthy relationships. And if you think about it this way, this is an analogy I like to use. If you're not physically fit, you feel physical stress as you climb up a steep hill. Well, when you're not mentally fit, you feel mental stress, and that comes out in the way of anxiety, frustration, unhappiness as you work to navigate challenges in your relationships. So it is really what we call the X factor for leaders. So developing your mental fitness is the equivalent to giving yourself an upgrade in your mental operating system. So think of like a computer, right? You always want your computer to perform at its best so you can do your work fast. And, we want you to go through life, not just getting through the days and surviving, but to actually thrive. Okay, so in a nutshell, and we won't spend too much time on this, Bill, for time constraint purposes, but I'll just give you a brief synopsis of my mental fitness journey in that, my top 2 ways of self-sabotaging, and I know Jonathan is dropping in the chat box a list of the 10 different ways that we self-sabotage. As I'm talking right now, you can open that attachment up and read the descriptions. They're really short and sweet, even if you haven't taken the self-sabotage assessment on the Positive Intelligence website, or if you did it but you didn't get your report yet, you can read those descriptions and probably self-identify really quickly. My top way of self-sabotaging is the stickler, which is another way of saying being a perfectionist or having perfectionism tendencies. And so back in the days when I was running my massage franchise business, I was known to be the type of boss that would really dig into the details, which was good to some extent. But when it went off the rails, it drove my staff members nuts. I would pick apart some of the reports they would give, and I would really hone in on the thing that was wrong and that they needed to fix, and, was very much a stickler about the way I wanted things fixed. And so it interfered in some of our team dynamics and having that camaraderie, because it was always like, oh, Patty's going to be the one to point out the thing that's wrong. And that's just a quick example of one way. It also shows up at home, even, obviously on a regular basis. I'm a neat freak, a clean freak at home. I tend to want my environment managed a certain way because it serves me best. But for others I live with, they don't care as much. So learning how to dial that down, having this be illuminated as my top way of self-sabotaging has really been a game changer in my household, as well as when I work with others in a business setting. And we could go into numerous examples, but I would say look at the attachment and just kind of eyeball it and just kind of pinpoint for yourself, okay, yes, if you're an avoider, if procrastination is your biggest thing, if you are someone who has higher controller tendencies than, maybe other people, So just see if you can pick one to kind of think through as we go through the rest of this. Because the key question to ponder here is, what is it costing you? For me, the stickler and the people pleaser, as well as my secondary one, was costing me harmony in my relationships at work and at home, which ultimately led to more stress and me feeling bad about myself. And just, it just layers and layers and layers, right? It gets in your way of coming up with creative solutions and ideas, and ultimately just not having the most ideal dynamics at work and at home. And for Bill, I don't know if you want to quickly comment on yours, Bill, maybe just the one, the hyperachiever.
Sure, just very quickly, hyperachiever. I just learned I felt I had to do everything myself. All right. I needed to continue to strive, continue to achieve. And in a sense, I lost the company that I had because I didn't get the help that I needed, the board of directors that I should have had, etc. In terms of controlling, well, yeah, I ended up with a divorce because my wife thought I was a little too stubborn about everything and trying to control everything in her life, and it was a disaster. And frankly, I didn't even know it was a problem. So that controlling aspect was so tunnel vision that it was a huge problem. So that's a a quick discovery, and over time I've learned how to work with these and how to have better relationships with myself and the people that I'm working with.
Yep, I know. It's like hindsight is more than 2020 when it comes to those big life moments. So the cost of his saboteurs, you know, we have it out here on the slide. And so you want to give thought to, you know, what is the reason that you might have your top style, whether it's hyperachiever, controller, people pleaser, avoider, and what is it costing you? And what, you know, what are you willing to do in order to shift that so that it doesn't have as much of a negative impact in your life? Okay, because ultimately this is how we are wired. When we have weak mental fitness, which is the blue piece of the pie chart, I'm sorry, when we have weak mental fitness, it's the red part of the pie chart. And on average, without training and development in this area, this is how most of us show up. You know, we have about a quarter, maybe a, you know, less than that of self-mastery and strength and mental fitness. And the rest of it is on autopilot. Our brains are thinking, finding things that are wrong, blaming and shaming ourselves, finding circumstances and people and issues with things in big ways and small ways. But when you learn how to develop your strengthen your mental fitness, just like if you go to the gym and you work out for 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, you see results and you change your lifestyle in certain ways and you develop those physical muscles. What we're here to help you with is to develop your mental muscles. And strong mental fitness helps you come at life from a place of love, whereas weak mental fitness, it's fear that's running the backstory in your head or your heart most of the time, or a lot of the time. Okay, so I'm going to skip through the foundational research just for the interest of time. Just know that it is all research-based, and these 4 bodies of research are about 20 years of research went into this. But if you read the book, you'll get the gist of it. And same thing here. So these were, you know, all the different participants and the, you know, over 50 countries, 500,000 people. And so the basic premise of this model is powered in factor analysis, which is getting at the root cause of things. So the mental fitness model has a few components. 3 main components. One is your saboteur interceptor. What does that mean? It means that when you're triggered by stress, so something happens, let's say I'm in the car and I'm driving and boom, I hit a traffic jam. And I was, up till then, I was smooth sailing and I was happy because I'm like, oh, I'm going to be early. I'm going to get coffee before this meeting or this event. Boom, traffic jam. I get annoyed, I get frustrated. It doesn't mean I'm off the rails upset necessarily, but that is what we call a mental hijacking. I'm temporarily out of sync with being in clear-headed, calm focus. You know, I'm now disrupted, I'm mentally hijacked, I'm annoyed. So what I do is I label it. So saboteur interceptor technique is basically realizing, oh, there goes my controller. I'm being triggered by this circumstance that's outside of my control. I don't like it. And that's why I'm annoyed. So it's like just having that level of higher awareness that right now I'm triggered by something in my environment. And the opportunity I have is to shift my energy, which Bill is going to walk us through in a little bit, how to shift in 1 or 2 minutes in different ways and techniques so that I can get into what we call sage mode. And sage mode is the second part of the framework. And that is where you see everything, you take the perspective that anything can be turned into a gift or opportunity. So how is stuck in a traffic jam a gift or opportunity? Well, I get to put on my Audible and listen to a book that I'm reading, or I'm going to call a friend that I haven't talked to in a while and check in with her because I might as well make good use of the time. So it's helping you spend less time being mentally hijacked and more time in sage mode so you get more done, you feel better, you're not disrupted, and you go through your day with ease and flow. And so the self-command muscle is essentially the access point or the way to getting into sage mode. So we're going to teach you how to use your mental fitness muscles in your brain to self-regulate or use your self-command so that you can go back into sage mode. Let me pause there and just see if that made sense, because I know that was a very quick explanation. What, if any, questions do you have so far?
If you have a question, you could use the raise your hand button.
Or just come off mute.
Yes.
I have a question.
Mhm.
So your example of the traffic jam is, in my mind, an easy one, right? Because there's nothing you could do about it. You couldn't have planned. I mean, hindsight is 2020. You could have left earlier, but I mean, assuming you had plenty of time, there's
Mhm.
nothing you could have done about it. You can't really beat yourself up for it too badly, and you can turn it into a positive pretty easily. But if you pick a different example, I don't know, a colleague of yours makes a mistake, and as a result, the client is upset, or
Mhm.
I don't know, whatever, things where you have to react quickly. There may be a problem that those are different. I mean, I know
Mhm.
for purposes of explanation, what you did was a good one, but I'm just wondering how it
Sure.
works. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, and thank you for asking that. So the example there is a perfect one because that is real life, right? So somebody messes up, and what's going to get triggered more than likely your judge, which is the universal master saboteur that we all have. We're all in judge mode 90% of the time, whether we admit it or realize it or not. We're constantly judging people, circumstances, and ourselves, right? So somebody messes up, our first inclination is, oh, I can't believe this. This is going to really have a negative ripple. You're blaming, you're coming up with there's all kinds of reactions in our head. So it's important to first take a moment and just acknowledge that that's what's going on for you, right? Like, okay, this is triggering my judge, this is triggering my controller. Let me decompress, clear my energy. It's almost like, rebooting the computer. You've got to, before you go and address that colleague or your direct report or your boss for that matter. And I have a lot of clients that I coach, and a lot of it is managing up. It's like, okay, so how do you go to your boss and confront or push back or express what you need to say so that you can get to a different resolution, a different technique? So there's a lot of scenarios, which is why we do this normally in a 3-hour format. We want to be able to give you all of them, but it's the same technique. It's, recognizing that you're triggered, labeling the actual saboteur so that you can relate to it, but put it outside of yourself, doing a 2-minute activity to clear your energy and get centered, and then asking yourself, okay, so what's the best course of action? What do I need to say? What do I need to do? How can I turn this into an opportunity? Because even if you're going to lose money, lose business, lose a client, have a relationship hiccup with a client, there's a way to approach it and that will salvage it, restore it, or at least help you prevent it from happening again with this colleague. But you're never going to access those solutions and ways forward unless you get to sage mode first. So it's critical, which is why so much toxic behavior exists in the workplace, because people never get back into sage mode. They stay hijacked, they stay in saboteur mode, and they try to operate that way by blaming, shaming, combating, and doing all this stuff that does not work. Right. And I know this makes sense. It's like rational thinking, but we are emotional human beings. And until we learn how to regulate at a mastery level, then we just will not reach, we won't get to the greater outcome. So I hope that that touches on it. I mean, a lot of this happens in more extended conversations and scenarios, which is what we're going to demo in a moment. So let me do this. Let me just give you a little bit more, and then I'm going to turn it over to Bill. So again, I'm not going to go through all the 10 saboteurs. I'm hoping and expecting that you all are going to just pop open the attachment so you can look at it. And then there are 5 sage powers. The essence of the sage perspective is that everything, even death, and I know that's heavy, but everything can be turned into a gift and opportunity in some way, shape, or form. We just can't always access that thinking and own it or feel it unless we work with somebody on it or we spend time working on it. But there's 5 ways that we help people get to that sage thinking, and it's through things like empathy, having empathy for the other person, empathy for self, getting into action. So activate is a sage power. Innovate, there's different innovation techniques that you can use when you're working with others to do problem resolution. There's navigate, so taking the perspective of, a year from now, looking back, if it gets resolved the way it should be resolved, what would I tell myself now to focus on and think about? Or 10 years from now, what would my elder, wiser self tell me to do in this situation? So there's 5 different ways, and in the workshop, we go through them in depth, so that you can apply each of the 5 sage powers to a variety of situations. Okay. Okay. So the last thing I'll leave you with before I turn it over to Bill is, this sometimes what people say in this workshop is, are negative emotions good for you? Well, a lot of people think, well, yeah, because, it's a survival mindset. We have to survive, we have to get through life. And, we also, let's be realistic, we're not going to go through life feeling positive all the time. And that's not what we're saying here. The key to this to understand, and at the root of all of this framework, is that yes, negative emotions are good for us, but only for a hot second, as an alert signal that there's danger, that there's something going wrong, or that I'm feeling a certain kind of way, and I want to acknowledge those emotions. But it's the equivalent of leaving your hand on the hot stove when you stay in a mentally hijacked state. So just like you wouldn't touch a hot pot, on a burning hot pot on a stove and leave it there, your brain tells you, oh my God, pain, let me pull my hand off the stove. So pain is good for you for a second as an alert signal. Same thing mentally, like I'm really upset, this person just ticked me off. Alert, alert, alert. Let me take care of me first. Let me access my best energy, and then I can, navigate this in the best way that I can. It might not turn out perfect, but but for you to ruminate for 2 days about it and get upset or pissed off or stay in that mentally hijacked state is what we're saying you don't need to do anymore. So Bill, let me turn it over to you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Patty. So folks, what we want to do now is to try a demonstration. And I spoke to Eileen yesterday, and she graciously accepted the invitation. So Eileen, why don't you come off mute, and I'm just going to discuss what our goal is here. Basically, I had a very brief conversation with Eileen yesterday just to ask her if she would be willing to do this demonstration, and secondly, if she had an issue that was up for her. And what she told me was that there was an issue of being a people pleaser, one of the saboteurs there, with the client, and it might have affected the pricing. And then I said, okay, stop. That's all I want to know. And let's see what we could do here in a live demonstration. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to Eileen a little bit now to find out a little bit more about that situation. And then we're going to do a role play, she and I, where we want to elicit that energy, that people please, to see how it presents itself, how it operates, how it works. And then we'll put that to rest for a moment, and then we'll try to get into the sage energy after and take another look at it. All right. So Eileen, are we still good?
Yes, we're good.
Great. All right. So why don't you tell me a little bit about this situation, the people pleaser in you and how it operates with this client, and obviously no names.
No, of course. I've always tended to be a people pleaser, both personally and in business. And I guess it's part of putting everybody else ahead of me. We have a client that's been a very good client for the last few years. And they've been a retainer client, so it's the same fee every month. In the last few months, they seem to have upped the amount of work that we contracted for. And so in my mind, I feel like we really do need to address this either by asking them to slow down the amount of work, which doesn't seem like a good thing to do because they're obviously in need of it, or of course, having to ask them to increase their fee to us. My fear is always that, oh my God, if we ask them for more money, they're going to get upset and they're going to look for somebody else, which I know is irrational because they've been very happy with us. We do great work for them. We have a wonderful relationship. But it's just my need to I'll just work extra hours, or I'll have my staff work extra hours, and we'll take the brunt of it because we don't want to upset the apple cart.
Okay. So how long have you been working with her? You said years?
Over 2 years, yeah.
Does she ever refer clients to you?
No, not of late. No, actually, no. One time, but it didn't amount to anything.
And the relationship between you two was very cordial, I presume.
Very.
Do you talk only about business, or do you talk about personal stuff?
A little personal. Sometimes on a call or a Zoom, we'll ask each other about stuff going on. Like she mentioned to us recently, she mentioned to me on a call that she was getting married in a few months, and we chatted about that. So yeah, occasionally we talk personal stuff.
Okay. Okay, and how often do you talk to her?
Maybe once a month. We
Okay.
email a lot, but talking once a month.
Okay. And what's the typical scenario when you're talking to her? Is it a phone call? Is it a Zoom call? Is it about business? Does she call you? Do you call her? But what's the typical situation?
Lately in the last 6 months, I would say 4 months, she'll often just call out of the blue to say, you know, something's going on. Can we jump on a Zoom call? Or I just want to ask you a question. Or she'll send an email. Saw this article. I think we should, you know, do something about it in the way of a blog. Or she'll just reach out to us. We used to have a standard monthly meeting with her and her partners. There are 3 partners in the business. That sort of fell by the wayside over the last 6 months. So nothing is scheduled anymore because they're busy, busy, busy. They were also recently acquired. It was a small privately held business. They were acquired by a much larger firm. And they're sort of beholden to this larger entity now. So their time is not their own any longer.
Okay, good. Okay, great. Okay, so that's enough. So let's try to do a role play. Okay. So I'm going to try to embody this person as best as I can. Okay. And you just look at me and think of this person. Okay. And as if we're going to have as if we're having a real conversation. So it will be an authentic conversation. Okay. Because it's about a real situation. All right. And let's see what happens. Okay.
Okay.
So let's just start the situation, whereas well, since we're on Zoom, I'm asking you to jump on a quick Zoom call. All right, and let's start. Eileen, thank you so much. I really appreciate this. You know, I'm just so damn busy. You know, I've got these partners here, and you know, I need you to do something pretty quickly. Sorry, but you know, that area that we had there, I'm just going to send it off to you on the website that you created. So, can you get that done by this afternoon, please?
Sure, we'll jump on it right away. We'll make time to take care of it.
You guys are so great. I tell you and Ted are absolutely the best. So look, I also have another project coming up. Okay, next week, you know, some of my new bosses, you know, with this acquisition, you know, things are pretty busy. And so it's really another website. And you know, we really want you to do that. I know it might cost a little bit more, but you know, I think a lot of this is covered under the retainer. But you know, we'll work it out. We'll work out the details. But can I send that to you?
Sure, you can send it to us. We'll have to see what's involved in it to see how much time it's going to take. But yeah, of course, send it.
Yeah, well, you guys are great. I mean, you know, you're always so, you know, so competent, and you're always there for us. You know, I love it when we call, you're there. I mean, that's why we did the retainer. You know, I mean, we wanted you there, and that retainer really works well for us, and I presume it's working well for you.
It is, yes, absolutely.
Great. So look, so that other project, you know, we probably need it in about a month or two. So I'll talk to you guys about it. We'll send you the specs. All right. But I also want to have my boss, you know, with this new acquisition, you know, I want him on the call on Zoom because he's got some thoughts as well. So would you be able to accommodate him as well?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, great. You know, I don't have a lot of time right now, so I really got to run, but I'll send you that email, and you know what, you know, I really appreciate you getting back to me this afternoon. Okay.
Will do.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Eileen. Okay.
Bye.
All right. So,
By the way, that sounded like the calls with them. So you did that perfectly.
So just give me 1 or 2 feelings that you have right now.
Well, I mean, the feeling is, of course, because they are one of our larger clients, we do go out of our way to help them.
Time, feelings, not thoughts.
A little stress.
Yes. Okay. Anything else?
I guess a little like, I'm thinking like they're throwing a lot at us. So it's going to be a lot of work and we're going to have to take the brunt of it. I'm feeling, I don't know. I don't want to say resentful because it's not really resentful, but something bordering on that, I guess.
Okay, so
A little
stress,
bit.
boredom, resentful, maybe some oppression.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, good. Okay, so thank you for those honest feelings. Okay, so we're going to stop the scene now, and for what we're going to do now with everyone is this is mostly for Eileen, but everyone can join in. I want to give you very quick. We're going to spend just 4 minutes trying to change the energy. I have articles written which I'm happy to share. 1-minute meditations. All right, what we're going to do now is I'm going to go through 4 different 1-minute meditations. All right, so if you would, please relax, close your eyes if you can, put your feet on the ground if you can, just be comfortable, shut your phones off, and just take these next 3 or 4 minutes for yourself, and I will guide you through this. All right, so first, just take a couple of deep breaths to relax. Just feel your body. And the first thing I want to do is ask you to think of someone that you love. It could be a child, a relative, a parent, an animal, just someone that you love. Put them in front of you and visualize them. See the smile on their faces. See the joy in their hearts. See the beauty of who they are and who they are to you, what they do for you, with you. Feel the connection between the two of you, the relationship. Have gratitude for this beautiful relationship. Feel the loving connection between you two. Just acknowledge it and feel that gratitude. Next, I'd like you to scan your body physically. Start from the top of your head. Just notice it. How does it feel? Is it tense? Is it relaxed? Is it light? Is it heavy? Then move down to your face. Is it stressed? Is it relaxed? And your throat, is it tight? Is it loose? Just notice it. Don't force anything. Move down to your shoulders and your chest. See your heart breathing. Feel your heart breathing, how it nourishes you automatically every moment of the day. You move down to your torso, your stomach. Is it comfortable? Is it hungry? Is it full? And your hips. Are you comfortable in the chair that you're sitting in? Do they ache or are they relaxed? And your thighs, your knees, and your feet. Just notice it. Now notice your surrounding areas. The temperature in the room. Is it warm, cold, comfortable? The light. Is it bright? Is it dark? Is there a fragrance in the room? Are there noises in the room? Are there noises outside the room that you can hear? Are there people around you that are walking? Just notice all of these things. No need to do anything about it. Just notice it. And then lastly, take your forefinger, your fingers, your thumb and your first forefinger, and just rub them together on both hands. And just notice the texture of your skin. Is it dry? Is it moist? Is it cold? Is it hot? Notice the ridges on the fingertips. As you rub them back and forth, just focus on that. And now just come back to the room and open your eyes again. Eileen, Come on back, Eileen. So, Eileen, how are you feeling right now?
Well, I'm going to say something that I don't share with too many people, but as soon as somebody says, how relaxed are you? I get tense.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay.
No, towards the end, it felt it was just very interesting to be tactily aware of what was going on.
So regarding your client now, all right, we can have another conversation, or you can tell me if you have any thoughts about what you felt before. Which would you prefer?
Wait, I'm sorry. So what do you want me to say?
Regarding your client now, tell me your thoughts about your client and how you approached them before and how you would like to approach her now.
Well, I guess my instinct now, having just done this for a few minutes, is to the next time I speak with them and they say, we have this other project and whatever, to bring up the conversation about the amount of work we're doing and to try to bring it around to something in a positive way, but that, it's a lot for us to handle in the amount of time we're given each month. So I guess something along the lines of trying to open the conversation up a bit.
So when I look at you now, Eileen, I don't see stress. I don't see oppression. I see a person that is making a wise statement and a wiser decision. I feel like you're coming from the center of your core. I feel like you're coming from a stronger place, from a wiser place. Do you feel that?
Yeah, I do. I could see where that would over time, I could see where with a little practice that would have a very positive impact.
Okay, so we don't have a lot of time now, but the essence is if you could do any one of the meditations that I mentioned, let's say before a call with this client, or even to say, let me get back to you in 30 seconds or 2 minutes, and just do any one of those exercises, any one that I mentioned, it will bring you to the place. And I don't know if you folks can see the difference in Eileen, but it will bring you to the place of the inner sage, the wise woman, the mature person, which eliminates or at least puts to the side the people-pleasing saboteur that you are operating from before.
Yeah.
Can I jump in real quick before we wrap that? So Eileen, what I would be most curious to hear you articulate is, what do you really want to say to this client? And let's make up a name, call her Sally, right? Let's just make up a name. What do you authentically want to communicate that you didn't feel like you could say before?
I guess that because of the quality of the work we're delivering to them and the amount of the amount of projects we're doing and the quality of the work we're doing, we need to be compensated a little bit more for it. And or, we understand that if their budget is still somewhat limited because of this acquisition and they don't have a say over everything, that we want to continue, but maybe we can find a way to, not do as many projects in the given amount of time each month.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And if you had said that or were to say that, if she were actually on this call, now how do you feel?
I'm still nervous.
Mm-hmm.
How do I feel like internally?
Mm-hmm.
I think I'd feel good about it.
Yeah.
I think I would feel stronger than I've been feeling to be able to say that.
Yeah. And the fear doesn't go away. That's what courage is. Courage, we all know, the process of pushing through the fear and acting despite of the fear. And that's what I see you now.
Right. It's courage. Yeah. It's excellent. Excellent. So, Bill, did you want to say anything else?
No, not really. Eileen, is there anything else that you want to share with any of the folks here?
No, I think the idea of what you said is before taking a call. I mean, sometimes you can't help it. Somebody calls you out of the blue, but if preparing for a call ahead of time or a Zoom meeting, I think it's a really good, I used to do meditating fairly often and I did find it was very relaxing and Yeah, you do get a different energy afterwards. So I think to take that few minutes to do that, I think is a wonderful exercise, which I had totally forgotten about. So thank you for that.
Yeah, with my clients, I tell them just take 1 minute, because each of those exercises I did were about 1 minute long. And I'll tell them before a meeting, or in the middle of a call, or if you're about to say something you know is not going to work, where I'll say, excuse me a minute, go out. And this person I was coaching, he likes to go outside, whatever it is you need to do. But you got 1 minute to take a coffee break, go to the restroom, take that 1 minute, comes back, you're in a different frame of mind. This is what mental fitness is all about. Get into that stronger frame of mind. You're in your sage perspective, you're in your power, your internal power system, your inner wisdom. And then you, by automatically being in that space, there's less room, or maybe even no room, for the saboteurs that were operating before, making you so much productive in your communication, so much more productive in the exchange that you're having, and so much more productive in the long term. I mean, as you pointed out before, the feelings you had before were not so great. The pressure, the stress, etc. So,
Thank you.
thank you.
Somebody put something in the chat.
Yes, can you comment on resetting a boundary? Yes, Diane, I'll definitely address that. But one thing I just want to add, and then we'll move on from this piece, is that so the secret sauce here for everyone's benefit is that the key to mental fitness is getting out of your head. You know, first recognizing that you're getting mentally hijacked by a circumstance that you don't have control over, you didn't ask for. Getting out of your head and getting into your body is the way. And the reason that is so important and effective is because you cannot experience stress when you're fully present. And what happens is when we get annoyed, when we get ticked off, when we get afraid, we get triggered in some way, we are not fully present. We're now in our heads, you know, like, oh God, this person is putting these demands on me, or this person messed up, or this situation is disrupting my flow. And we're mentally hijacked temporarily, but we can't, so you can, the way forward is to get into your body. So even if we were on this call right now, Eileen, and I was your client and we were talking, and something, you know, is going on and that's triggering you, even in the moment, if you can't step out of the room, you can just study the person's glasses. You know, like I was looking at your sweater. I love the buttons, by the way. You know, like I was studying the details of, like, you know, either your background or an outfit that the person's wearing, and just use your one of your 5 senses to get your brain to do what you want it to do. Because then you'll be able to access like the better response and, you know, clearer thinking in the moment, as opposed to a reactionary defensive or a shutdown or an avoidance technique. Go ahead.
Right. So interestingly, Diane just added, the client has been used to me saying yes. So I would like to hear you guys respond to, how do you change, and this may be true with other clients as well. So how do we change the pattern that they've become accustomed to with us or with me, and start moving in a different direction so that it doesn't totally upset the apple cart in business?
Yeah, it's simple. You use the yes and technique, which again, you know, we can practice more in a longer format, but essentially you say yes. Yes, I can do that for you. Yes, we are going to help you. Yes, we will put a process together, and it will cost a little more, you know, and obviously you say it differently, but, you know, and we'll have to figure out how we can reset the financing around it, or the, you know, whatever. Or yes, let me go and talk to my partner. We're going to, and then come back to you with some options. But you still say yes to your client. You just are managing expectations on the front end that there are some implications. So
yeah, and the biggest thing is that, Eileen, you're coming from a different place now. See, before the source of your energy was coming from a people-pleasing, you know, personality trait.
mm-hmm.
Come from your center. You're more connected to the person. The words will naturally flow out.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep. And as far as the boundary question, let me just pull that back up. Can you comment on resetting a boundary? I'm not sure the exact context of that, but in general, I would say that, you know, you can, it is a matter of just being very matter of fact, right? So saying, you know, as you know, in our contracts, we have a certain amount of hours allocated for your work. So, just want to give you a heads up that if it's going to extend beyond that, then, it does impact cost or pricing or something around that, something like that. If we're talking about Eileen's situation, boundaries in other situations, it really depends on the exact situation. So,
And Greg, in the notice, Greg put down, you don't think you say it any differently than that. And again, I think it's not the words, it's where it's coming from.
yes.
Great.
Yep. So you want to be in control of you. And so it's important that, if you do need a break or you do need to come back to it, you request that, and then you go manage you get centered, and then you have a more powerful conversation. But if you can't pull away and you're in a meeting and it's getting heated or contested, or you're just getting triggered, you could be doing this finger rubbing underneath the camera. Nobody has to see it, but you're getting your brain to focus on something that's touch, so that you're not ruminating and reacting in your head. So it's intercepting that negative process is what we're talking about.
In all of these communications, this is one thing I always talk about, is we're not looking for something outside of ourselves to say to be clever, all right? But instead, we're trying to find out what is on the inside, what is our deepest truth, our inner wisdom, and if you speak from there, the words will come out naturally, all right? So don't always, and I'm saying this for myself and everybody else, let's not always look out there for something clever to say that should be said or whatever, but instead touch base in here with the connection you have to that person. And if you do that, the right words will flow out naturally.
Great.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Oh, you are so welcome.
You, Eileen, thank you.
So we can go back to gallery view now. So I know we're kind of almost at time, and we do want to have some questions. So here's what I'll say. We're not going to focus on the slide deck today because this was really just meant to be a demo. Like I said, this is a much longer program that gives you the chance to learn it, practice it, absorb it, get into all the different ways to access your sage thinking and being. So it's a lot more in depth. It's simple, but more complicated. So if you have even 2% interest in learning more and, sticking your toe in the water, and, what we would like to do is put together just an interest list. So what we'd like, Jonathan, if you can drop both my email and Bill's emails in the chat box. So email either of us or both of us and say, hey, I like the workshop today, the webinar. I'd be interested maybe in attending the 3-hour workshop. And then we'll send you pricing. We'll talk about dates, because what we want to do is have multiple sessions. So there might be one in May, one in June, and if we have enough people, we will customize it to the dates that you're available, because that's, we want to do it in person. So we might do one in New Jersey and one in Westchester, and we got to coordinate a lot of logistics around it. But we feed you, you learn all of the meditation and mindfulness techniques, and we do scenarios with everyone in the class. So it's 6 to 8 people, 3-hour workshop, and it is a game changer, because it's like going to the gym for 3 hours in your brain and coming out with like a whole different capability and perspective.
And I cannot overestimate the importance of experiencing this. I mean, I just had an experience, however it was, but when we do these workshops, we go through all of the people in there so that they all have a visceral experience. And when you have that, as we all know, it stays in your memory longer. The impact is much greater. To understand it mentally is one thing, but to have the visceral experience of going through one of these exercises is much long-standing. So that's the real benefit of getting the whole package, the mental and the visceral experience of it. So that's why we invite you to come to one of these sessions.
Yeah. So what questions do any of you have? Oh, Jonathan, you're on mute.
Patty, you took the words out of my mouth. So Bill and Patty said they could stay a few minutes after also to make sure all your questions are answered. So if anyone, we have like 1 minute, it's like 1 minute to one, but they can stay a little after and answer any questions that might be on your mind. So, and you could ask now.
I have a question. So I am like Eileen, where I get trapped is I'm a people pleaser, and I despise confrontation and do whatever I can do to avoid it, which sometimes those things go together, I guess.
Mhm.
So, I guess my question, and I'm very fortunate to be in an industry where I can't set pricing. I just am a middle person, and so that's a good thing for me, because if I could set pricing, I would shoot myself in the foot constantly.
You give
My
away the
que-
store.
I totally would, and I do it in other ways. My question is there, I mean, I'm sure there are all sorts of techniques, but what I've done periodically, which I think with some success is, and I'm wondering how you feel about this, is reversing the roles, right? So we are all consumers of people's services, and we are all providers of other products or services typically. So if how do you feel about the concept of flipping it? And Eileen, if you are paying somebody for something and you come to them and you say, oh, I have additional work, I have an additional project, you know, if they say, well, that's fine, we have to adjust the fee schedule. If you're anything like I am in terms of people pleasing, you would say, of course, that's totally understandable. I would expect that, or whatever.
Absolutely.
Right. But when it's flipped back to you, you're like, oh, I don't know, that feels scary. I might risk it. Worse than I might lose the client. They might think badly of me. Like, and at least, and I'm talking about myself, not you. So I guess, so Bill and Patty, is there a way to do that or a place for that depending on the scenario, and how would you do it?
Absolutely. That's like a reverse improv. I think we would absolutely play that out in a, longer format, or even in a one-on-one session. So I've often done that with clients, in my one-on-ones is, either take the other, what do you think the other person's thinking or feeling, or how would you feel if you were in their shoes and they were in your shoes? Or taking, doing a visualization exercise where you think, like I said, a year ahead, or, in the future, what would your wiser self tell you to say or do in this situation, knowing what you know about your values, their values, the objectives in play, all of that. So there's many different ways to approach it, and you could be a coach, because that's a great idea.
Adam, yeah, thank you for that. I mean, it would be a great exercise to totally reverse the roles. And as you're saying, and have the person experience the other side of it. Because then there would be yet another awareness of, oh my goodness, this is not much of a problem from the other person's side. Why am I being such and such? So I think that's an excellent idea.
Mhm.
Eileen, do you want me to solve your problem?
Your partner, what are you going to say?
Now, since I put my thinking cap on, I would speak to the client, and after she's telling you all these things that have to be done, you say, client, could you help me? I have a problem and I need your advice. I'm spending a lot of time on your project. As a matter of fact, over the past 3 months, your projects have taken basically twice the amount of time you allotted for it. So I have a problem, because we can't keep on going, giving you this kind of time for this type of compensation. And I want your advice as to what you would do in this situation. By taking this and putting it upon the client, she will start coming up with suggestions, because number one, she loves your work. She loves you. Maybe she likes me, okay. But
Just a little.
just a little. I get love once in a while. And just say and start the conversation. And it doesn't have to go any place, but a nice personal conversation. Because when her company was acquired, she sold it for a certain amount, and perhaps she wanted more, but it's a negotiating point that you're starting off. You start to talk, and then perhaps over the next week or two, you could resolve it in either less work or more compensation. But what do I know about this? It's your business.
So, Ted,
Yes.
good idea. I have a concern about that, though, which is I don't want her to lose her strength and her power. In other words, depending on how she does that, and I'm not saying you're suggesting she does it that way, but I don't want to give all the power to the other person by saying, what should I do? because then in a sense, she could still come from a people-pleasing point of view by saying, okay, you tell me that I could get more money. So, and I'm saying, depending on how she does it. So I would rather keep it cleaner and say, I'm coming from my center and this is what I believe. And it's a heartful conversation. So I appreciate what you're saying, but it could be a little tricky there, if you know what I'm saying.
Right. I understand.
But I like where you're going with it, Ted. You're in your sage mode, thinking creatively, and that's where we want you.
I think we should do a one-on-one.
You and me?
No, it's a good
Thank you,
example
Brittany.
of being in sage mode, because you're thinking of options and different ways to say it and different mindsets, and that's what you want to be able to access. So what other questions does anyone have?
Yeah, I'll bring up something. I mean, it's similar to Adam, you know. I think I've been ingrained since I'm little kid to be a pleaser. You know, you behave well and you get reward for it. So I'm always trying to earn people's approval by
Mhm.
always you know, doing everything and putting everyone first. And I think that you know, I mean, I know the first step is awareness and then trying to take, you know, proper action after that. But I'm, you know, it's a combination of pleaser and kind of controller. You know, I'm a pleaser, but then I'm also a bit of a control freak. Like I want to do everything exactly right. Like I won't have that if I delegate something to someone and
Mhm.
you know, I know I can do it perfectly and it's, you know, I'll finish it in 2 seconds.
Right.
But so it's not a good management style
Mhm.
because I end up spending more of my time doing things that I shouldn't be doing because I'm trying to please others or I'm trying to just do everything myself instead of delegating.
But I think that that's a common problem with solopreneurs or, you know, smaller businesses where, you know, you tend to, you start a business because you have a certain skill and then you end up taking on all the other activities of the business because you're sort of afraid to give it away. So that I think that's kind of a common thread you hear from, you know, solo entrepreneurs, small businesses.
Doesn't make it any better.
No, I'm not saying it does.
Yeah.
Just
And
a
all of
lot
these
of people
saboteurs
suffer
have-
from it.
all of these saboteurs have a cost to them, right? I
Yeah.
mean, you shared you were a little stressed, a little depressed. There's financial the differences. So there is a cost to these, even though we say, hey, we can handle it. Yeah, we're handling it, but we're handling it at a cost.
Well, there's a huge cost. The business will grow slower than it normally would be if I
Mhm.
was delegating more.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. Yeah, we get hesitant to take risks, to incur more costs because we're like, oh, if I hire someone and I delegate to someone, then, you know, how's that going to go? Is it going to go poorly? Am I going to spend too much money? You know, so the key, and I know Ken has a question, we'll pop to you, I promise, next, Ken, but the key to this is, and which is why I said, you know, training will only take us so far, right? So all of us know intellectually and rationally that we shouldn't micromanage, right? We should assert ourselves. We should communicate directly and not hold back and avoid difficult conversations. We know all those things. And we've probably, some of us or all of us have been through those types of trainings in our career at some point in time on the how to. The issue is, why do we still, you know, show up and work the way we do? Why do we still hesitate to speak up, or why do we hesitate to take a risk, or why does fear? And it's because our saboteurs hijack us, and we, you know, we don't have a way to work through that energy to get a different outcome. It takes work, you know. So go ahead, Ken.
Okay, one second. I have to
Oh,
go,
sure.
everyone. So I'm going to just undo my video. Patty, I made you
Yep.
host, so
Mhm.
you should be able to turn off the recording. But Bill and Patty, thank you so much. Great presentation, everyone. Thank you for being here.
Thank
So,
you, Jonathan.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Thank you.
Jonathan?
I really simply
There's
want to
one
make
thing I wanted, if it's okay,
Yeah.
to mention, which, and I'm not sure if this is true for everybody else, but just understanding the saboteurs and really owning that, oh, I'm doing that. And then you, right there, believe it or not, that makes a difference too, right? Because
Mhm.
then you are self, diagnosing or identifying that
Mhm.
voice, if you will, inside your head that's going, oh, no, don't upset them, or
Right.
don't let someone else take control, or don't whatever. And it may not take it from a 10 on the anxiety scale to a 0,
Right.
but it probably will take it from a 10 to an 8 or a 10 to a 6.
Mhm.
Awareness is the first step, Adam. Absolutely.
Yeah,
And Ken,
absolutely. Go ahead, Ken.
Okay, I just want to make a point. I want to please people.
Yeah.
I want people to be happy with me. I want people to like me. And rather than throw the baby out with the bathwater, for many of us who say we're people pleasers, we want people to be pleased. I think it's an important distinction between I want to please people and I don't want to betray myself in order to get somebody to like me.
Mhm.
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's nothing wrong with bending over backwards to make a client happy or even a loved one, as long as you're doing it consciously and without resentment or without expectation. You know, if you're doing it from a sage place of pure love or pure genuineness, and, you know, rather than like, well, I'm doing this because otherwise I feel like I'm at risk for losing the client, that's not a powerful energy to come from. But if you're doing it because you really, you know, you accept and embrace this opportunity and you're going to do it willingly and without, you know, any angst, then that's, you know, coming from a higher place of being. But you also don't want to do that, you know, just by default over time, over and over and over, because eventually, you know, what happens with people pleasers, we end up upset, right? We're like, why do I work harder than everyone else? Why is everyone else taking advantage of, you know, there's all this narrative that goes on. And so it's either change the narrative or change the way you're, you know, dealing with the situation.
and that's where the boundary lines come in, right, Ken? I mean, where's the line that's healthy and not healthy, where my integrity is, where my integrity, I'm out of integrity, in integrity. I mean, yeah, it's a spectrum, you know, it's not cut and dry. It's
Yeah, but what you can all do coming out of today is just start to, you know, if you haven't taken the self-assessment, the saboteur assessment on the Positive Intelligence website, take it. You know, hopefully the results will come through a little faster. But if not, just use that one-page handout to start, you know, pick one to focus on. And we all have all 10, by the way. It's just that we have one or two that are driving our inner dialogue most of the time. So, you know, we all have victim energy, whether we admit it or not. It's just triggered in to more or less degree in different scenarios. But, you know, pick one to focus on and start catching yourself. Like, oh, there's my stickler. Haha, nice to see you again, right? Just start to catch yourself and play that mental game with yourself of being aware, raise your awareness. And then find creative ways to shift your thought patterns and your energy. Even if you're in person, you know, you don't have to shut your eyes and leave the room in order to get into your body and, you know, get out of your head. But if you can do any of the, you know, more meditative exercises a couple times a day at least, it'll shift your energy and you'll be able to have days that just flow better. Go ahead, Eileen, you were going to say something.
No, I was going to say I have to jump in like 2 minutes to
No
get ready
worries.
for another
No worries.
call. So I just wanted to say it was fun doing it, and thank you very much.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you for volunteering and being on the spotlight. I know that's not easy.
I wasn't totally volunteering. I was volunteered.
But you could have said no.
I know. But I'm a people pleaser. I would never say no. No, it was great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. I have to jump as well. Much appreciated.
No worries. No worries.
Thank you,
Take
everyone.
care, everybody.
Thank you.
It was
Got it.
great, by the
That
way.
was
Thank you.
Fun. This was fun. Yeah.
Hey, good to see you, Greg.
Any last
See
questions?
both of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we miss you.
I'm keeping tabs. I gotta jump, but I'll talk to you guys soon.
All right.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Thank you, Jason. Any questions at all for us? We're happy to chat with you.
No, all good. I've been mostly just listening along and
Taking it in.
yeah, taking it in. I took the assessment yesterday, which was interesting. You know, it was always interesting to kind of self-reflect it. I felt it was pretty spot on. So
Good. Good.
the presentation, I like the presentation, and you know, the couple of the scenarios that we worked through, you start thinking about customer interactions that you have on you know, personally, right? And we're going through, we have a difficult customer that we're dealing with right now, and so we're trying to figure out, you know, how to handle that situation. So I thought it was really helpful to kind of go through some of the role playing, and it might be interesting to try that tactic of kind of turning it around and be like, oh, listen, how would you deal with this? So,
Mhm. Or
but
just map, yeah, that and or map out different options, but just make sure that you're being completely candid and say, listen, I absolutely want to help you with that. You're my number one priority. Like you can just, I find that if you just talk to people from your heart, and lead with that a little bit and then back into it with the details and the facts and I'll give people option A or option B. We can do this and this is the implication and we could do that. What would serve you best?
yeah, and then the alternative is that you find out through some of your other networking contacts that it's not just you that's the problem.
Yeah,
Sometimes there's just difficult people, and so that's always interesting too. So
exactly. Exactly. Well, we hope to see you again in another meeting or session or, reach out with anything we can further help you with.
absolutely, thank you guys for hosting this.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you. Appreciate it. Yeah.
Take care. All right, Bill, I'm going to stop the recording.